Sorry about that. I was just getting this set back up. Okay, so I think we've given it enough time now for everybody to get here. I'm gonna be weirdly over here in the corner just to keep the computer going, make sure there's no problems. But welcome and thank you all so much for joining us today and at a fun new location too. I'm very excited for today's meeting personally. I've been wanting to hear about today's topic for a long time, so very glad to have you all here. To anybody who is new maybe today, we are GNRC. We are a development district that serves a 13 to 17 county portion of the upper Middle Tennessee region, depending on the project. And our main goal is essentially just to improve quality of life for Middle Tennesseans. And we have a variety of aging and disability services and planning services to meet that end. We started the Roundtable as part of the Community and Regional Planning Group in 2020, initially to give input on the transportation plan that we were working on at the time. And it's stuck around as a way to sort of just get together, discuss environmental issues, and of course, to still get your input on some of the work that we're doing. So again, thank you all for being here today. And I also do want to apologize quickly. I noted that whoever wanted to join the tour would get a second calendar invite. And then I forgot to ask for your emails in the form. So I don't know who wanted to go on the tour, but glad you're here and we will be doing that. So next time the form will be better. All right. Oh, is it going? Oh man. That's working. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. Ugh,
I mean, is it a meeting without technical difficulty?
I know. Oh, okay, here we go. It's working now. All right. So today's agenda, first, we are going to do our typical welcome introductions. We'll just do a little snake around the room for that. Second, the big show, the PFAS discussion, and we have Emily Leonard here to talk to us about that. Very excited, and thank you for joining us, Emily. Next, we will do the around the table portion, and during that time, any of you are welcome to share different events, projects you're working on, relevant things that you think the group might be interested in. Next, we will cover some upcoming activities on GNRC's side. We've shortened that portion a bit today. We'll just give you a little rundown of some of our climate action planning work. Then we will adjourn the meeting portion, and if you would like to join us for the tour of the facility, that will be right afterwards. So, without further ado, let's get into the welcome and introductions. So first, I want you to say your name and organization, and then sort of quickly answer this question. Which of the four of these sort of environmental related issues is of greatest concern to you and why? And that could be maybe professionally, that's the area you work in most. Maybe you've had a personal experience with that, or maybe it's just something that intrigues you. So I will start and then we can go straight out this way to Emily and we'll snake around like that. All right, so I am Skylar Ellis. I am an environmental planner with GNRC. And of these, I would say that air quality is of greatest concern to me currently. One, because we're working on our emissions reduction plan. So that's something I'm involved with every day. And I do believe in climate change, so it does scare me a bit. All right, to you, Emily.
Hi, everyone. Emily Leonard, Senior Policy Analyst. I'm with TDAG, and the answer to the second question is yes. But I would say probably like what you're here today from me, that's going to be around water quality.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Elliott. I'm the State Health Care Director at the Tennessee Department of Health. I'm going to say air quality because we think a lot about relationship between heat and air quality, so a special plug for heat on that list, but of how that impacts folks with climate conditions, and we have a lot of those in Tennessee. So.
Hi, I'm Elise Karpinski. I'm the Policy Director at Carpenter Conservancy.
I'm gonna choose water. I've always been fascinated by water supply issues, and water is central to our mission. Is perfect. Clean water is in healthy ecosystems for the state of Tennessee.
Hi, my name is Connor Stevens. I'm an academic fellow also with Harvard Conservancy. And I would also say that the area of the greatest concern for me is water quality and supply based on current work.
Bradley Klingsheim, cover for the Army Corps of Engineers here at the Nashville districts. My biggest concern is the water supply. I'm the water supply program manager for them, so all the projects here that have water supply agreements.
Sally Schiller. I am a volunteer with the chapter of the Sierra Club. And I'm a retired biology professor. And so, yeah, I think right now sustainable waste management is an area I'm serving on the committee and the Sierra Club regarding that. And so we're working on developing a coalition with ARPA and Cumberland River Compact, right? To think about policy with regards to PFAS and biosolids.
Hello, everyone. I'm Clarissa Cahill. I'm with TDEC's Office of External Affairs. I cover the Nashville region. To the second question, I would say all of these are important to me. I did a lot of water quality and water quantity work before I came to TDEC. I worked in remediation with when I first started with TDEC, and we cover a lot of these areas, not just one. And now that I'm with OEA, I work with all of our different air, water, waste divisions to help them, push their regs and projects forward. So all of these are quite important. I was at an air public meeting last night. So.
I'm Michael Sullivan, Community Development Director for Town of Thompson Station. I'm also going to say water quality because that's the trend right now. We're blessed to live in Middle Tennessee where we have a ton of rivers, creeks, lakes, great water, and a lot of aquatic life, and want to make sure that generations to come also have all of the features we have to enjoy and live with.
Zach Andreessen, work for an engineering firm called Rebella Associates. I'm with him on water quality, and creeks and lakes and everything near here. I've grown up, I think creeks are a little fuller, rain a little, a little better. So it's a fair amount of importance to me. And what we do to make sure that we've got clean water and with the supply constraints, so it's gonna be a big deal for those creeks.
I'm Shani Fisher. I'm an environmental analyst at the same company as Zach, Labella Associates. I would say all of them are pretty equally important to me. It's kind of hard to pick a favorite in this sphere, especially with like environmental consulting specifically. All of those things come up quite a lot. Personally, I have volunteered with like the river compact and doing a lot of cleanup. So I guess that would be like sustainable waste management and water quality and supply in my free time. So
Thank you for volunteering with us. It's great, Harry. I'm the Stream Restoration Division Manager, Cumberland River Compact. Obviously, all these are extremely important. I think if I said anything else beyond water quality, people give me some weird looks at me. But I do spend most of my time hanging out the streams, restoration projects, developing restoration plans. So water quality is always so much fun.
Hi, I'm Natalie Cushing. I'm with the Division of Water Resources at TDEC. I'm environmental specialist. And I would say that water quality is probably the most recent concern to me. That's what I work in and what I'm interested in.
Hi, everybody. I am on goals. I'm also GNRC, and I am an environmental planner and which we're following. I feel like I'm kind of hopping on the track here, but water quality, we were just out in Montgomery County doing some street visits earlier this week. So water quality is one I'm going to go with.
Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor. I also work at GNRC. I'm on the Community Regional Planning team with Skylar and Maddie. And I actually specialize in disaster science and emergency management. So natural disasters is my choice. So yes, all of them. I got into this field of work because I was living in Clarksville. My house flooded in 2010. It was quite an experience. And then I was also in Hurricane Laura in 2020. Whole other experience. So I like to volunteer, get involved anywhere I can, help with hazard.
Hi, I'm Connor Carroll. I'm the TIP coordinator at GNRC. I was gonna say I was going out on a limb with natural disasters, but actually in May 2010, I was just underneath Person Grease at my grandparents' house. And it was one of the first lots to fill up. So that's definitely something consistently on my mind is natural disasters, but just stormwater generally. That, you know, the more impervious surfaces we lay down, the more stormwater we wind up getting and the more likely these floods are in parcel by parcel. But, you know, water quality, air quality are very important. And it's kind of connected in the sense that if we're taking care of water quality and supply issues, and if we're doing sustainable waste management, then, you know, you take PFAS out of the water, but you're also getting more of a command over stormwater. So I think they're kind of in tandem.
I'm Brian Holm, I'm one of the land use planners at GNRC, and thought this could be original, say natural disasters, just mix it up, but my time is off, so land use planning deal a lot with natural disasters and water quality and supply issues. Pete Westerholm, Director of External Affairs at GNRC. I also say natural disaster became so popular. But what is a concern about natural disasters when we learn about just the potential for a very significant year coming up? There's concerns about wildfire, some bigger impacts that it has on everything else, and also concern about our ability to respond to them. So careful with both the natural environment and human needs that provides for that. This is that's the better sense. I'll leave it on. Sure.
Hey, Dan McDonald, Director of Transportation and Infrastructure at GNRC. I use the guise of air quality to say the climate crisis that we're entering into. I think that it has a negative feedback loop to those air quality, water supply, quality, natural disaster that's become. So it's kind of all encompassing. Hopefully, sustainable waste management is positive. It's part of the solution.
All right, great. That was everyone. Thank you all so much. All right. So next, oh, come on. Not again. Am I gonna have to just keep re-plugging it in? Will that just like make it? Oh, genius. Okay. So agenda item 2, very excited for this, our per and polyfluoroalkyl substances discussion. And we have Emily Leonard, Senior Policy Analyst from the TDEC Office of Policy and Planning to tell us about that. So without further ado, please welcome Emily. Hopefully it works for you.
All right.
And yeah, feel free to stand wherever you'd like. There's a podium there if you'd like that.
I will stand and that way I can kind of face y'all, but then also like see the slides as they're coming. Thank you for joining today and hearing the gospel of PFAS. So Emily Leonard, Senior Policy Analyst in Office of Policy and Planning with TDEC, and I've been in this role since August of 2023. When I first started with TDEC, I was like, "What's PFAS?" And they're like, "Well, you got to figure it out. Deal with it." At that point, I had heard of aqueous film forming foam, AFFF. I had been in the military before, so that's one way in which I knew about these firefighting foams. But didn't know as much about exactly the hazards involved with it and some PFAS. That is one way in which I started to be like, oh, wow. So I started learning on day one of my job and have really loved my job ever since because I learn something new every day. I say I'm 2 years old every day because I truly do learn something new every day. Here, we're going to do it like as in, I don't know. So what PFAS are. So like, let's
have this as like a general audience overview, and though I think everybody here is kind of probably familiar with PFAS. So I'll give the overview about what they are, exposure pathways, different associated health risks involving that. Some updates to federal rules, including the Toxic Substance Control Act, National Defense Authorization Act, and the final drinking water rule for PFAS from EPA, at least how it stands currently and where that's at. Then I'm going to go into TDEC's PFAS response, including water sampling efforts in Tennessee, and that will include both the unregulated contaminant mine rule 5, because there's not enough acronyms in government, USMR 5, findings in Tennessee, as well as our source water sampling effort that was conducted over since about 2-year timeframe, testing public waters, source water supplies for public water systems. And then I'm going to kind of touch on a little bit of some things that we're working on in terms of response and resources, funding availability for local governments and utilities. Kind of preview a little bit of what the strategy looks like, though I cannot give away much yet because it's still pending leadership approval. And then just bring out some opportunities for cross-agency partnerships. So if you have ideas, if you want to work with us, we want to know. So start off with definition of PFAS, also known as forever chemicals. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances refers to a class of thousands of chemicals, literally over 15,000 different kinds of chemicals, man-made chemicals that are commonly used and have been used since the 1940s. And so you will find them in a wide variety of consumer goods and industrial products, applications, manufacturing processes. Basically, PFAS are ubiquitous within the environment because of how long they have been used and then the variety of goods that they have been put into. So exposure to certain PFAS chemicals have been linked to increases in specific health risks and disease. So how do they end up in our environment and how do we get exposed? Well, stain-resistant products, non-stick cookware, takeout containers, waterproof apparel. I mentioned firefighting foams earlier. Furniture and textiles, those are all ways in which, like, common items in which your everyday use, you're going to run into PFAS. We also have, as far as how people get exposed, drinking water. That's one of the things that I will probably be talking about. I definitely will be talking about a lot today. That one's my main one that I like to harp on. But also, in any kind of way in which there's like a chemical process used, so PFAS going up into the air from manufacturing processes, any kind of fish that are caught that might particularly have chemicals. They're also seeing that in other wildlife game as well. So any consumption of an animal that would have like PFAS within the tissue, eating food that has been contaminated, and we know that a lot of containers generally have PFAS in them. Food containers, just takeout containers, right? So accidentally swallowing contaminated soil or dust as well. So this is a fun little graphic that we've been working on as well to really kind of encapsulate the PFAS life cycle and, starting off with the manufacturing of everything from the consumer goods and then as well firefighting foams, and then the different pathways in which it goes into surface water, groundwater, and then follows the distribution. So everything that we use in our homes, and then subsequently put into waste streams, including landfills, wastewater treatment plants, or water treatment facilities in the case of if you're treating for drinking water. So all of these ways in which they can, in which PFAS can enter into the environment and then they just continually cycle through. So as well, we're taking a tour of biosolids plant today, right? Biosolids has been a huge topic as far as PFAS contamination and concerns about the land application for agricultural use. And so that is something as well in which, there is concern about whether or not PFAS are in the soil and how do we know? But because these chemicals are really, really hard to break down due to their strong bonds, there's a lot of different, in terms of, there's a lot of different pathways in which people can be exposed. So these are some of the health risks associated with PFAS. You have specifically increases in cholesterol levels, lower antibiotic response to vaccines, changes in liver enzymes,
pregnancy-induced hypertension and preeclampsia, and then you see the associated PFAS, and it's basically summaries of their findings. All of this information, by the way, is available in our source water report, which is in our archive section on our TDEC PFAS webpage. We also have small decreases in birth weight, kidney and testicular cancer, and decreased fertility in women as we learn more about these PFAS. I will say, concerning PFAS, we're doing science in real time to learn about, what exactly are the health effects? How long do they actually linger within different media? And then also, what kind of technologies can we implement to break these chemicals down? So, federal rules, there's been some action, although it is slow. So, Toxic Substances Control Act is likely to delay the reporting rule requirement. So this was so the rule issued in 2023 was mandated by a DoD Department of Defense legislation in 2020 that requires manufacturers and importers of products made with or containing PFAS dating back until 2011 to submit that information to EPA. And that would include both domestic manufacturers as well as importers. So under the new administration, though, there's been some changes to that proposed rule. So EPA proposed in November 2025. Apologies. Revisions to the rule exempting reporting requirements for PFAS manufacturing and mixtures or products and concentrations less than 1.1%. The main thing you see here highlighted is imported articles because that tends to, even though there's a lot of PFAS chemicals that are no longer manufactured necessarily in the United States, that doesn't necessarily mean that the goods manufactured overseas don't come into the United States. They're coming into the United States, and because of that, they are contributing to that PFAS life cycle and coming within our system. So you also have certified products, R&D chemicals. So the current schedule for the reporting period was in April, and now that's been moved back to October. They've also changed the timeline for reporting requirements on that.
You might need to point at me over. Yeah, let's see if I can.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. I can also just ask you for the slide.
If
that works.
If it keeps messing up, we can do that.
Okay, so National Defense Authorization Act, and so the 2026 one was actually implemented in 2025, but it comes to the 2026 one. So this extends the ability for procurement and use of AFFF, which is known source of PFAS at military bases and installations. And that's only covering those that haven't already converted to different kind of fluorine-free foam FFF deadline, or that haven't converted to those alternatives. So the deadline is now October 2028 for that new deadline of ending procurement and use. I would say that currently there are the abilities for these installations to have 1-year waiver requirements where they can ask for an extension from the Secretary of Defense, and that can grant a waiver for use for up to a year. And then there's no more than 2 waivers that can be used. But currently now the projected timeline is 2028 for the phase out. AFFF has been used at airports and military bases for years because it is used to extinguish highly flammable liquids, including jet fuel, which makes sense if you're thinking about aviation. So sites where AFFF has been used are more likely to have PFAS contamination in the surrounding environment. Next slide, please. Okay, drinking water rule. So this one's the one I'm probably most concerned about right now. It's taking a lot of my attention. In April of 2024, under the last federal administration, EPA came out with the final drinking water rule for PFAS, establishing legally enforceable maximum contaminant levels in finished drinking water. So you can see here the associated PFAS chemical compounds, including down here, it's a hazard index calculation, so multiple PFAS, 2 or more PFAS. So they had set for these individual compounds the specific gold levels. The NCLG is the gold level. the final NCL, those are the legally enforceable levels, are there, and you can see them in parts per trillion. So PFOA, PFOS, those 4 parts per trillion, and then the others, besides the hazardous index mixture, which is a unit less of 1, these other chemicals at 10 parts per trillion. So how small is a part per trillion? Pretty small. You could say it's like 4 needles in a 24-story haystack, or, you know, one drop of water that comes from 10 regular sized swimming pools. So that's really small if we're talking about 1 part per trillion. Just to kind of like put into a visualization of what that means. In terms of the actual rule in and of itself, there's been some movement. There was a case for American Water Works Association versus EPA on the DC circuit, where they had said, hey, we don't know if these rules were promulgated properly, so we want to go back and revisit them. They wanted to announce on May 14th of last year. I don't know why, but it's always May that EPA comes out with announcements. But they said that they were going to intentions to keep the maximum contaminant levels for PFOA and PFOS while rescinding and reevaluating the other PFAS standards they put forth. They said they could keep the initial monitoring requirements for PFAS within public water systems by 2027. And then they also said that they would be extending the deadlines for that maximum contaminant level, legally enforceable, those levels for PFOA and for PFOS from 2029 to 2031. Now, this was an announcement made in May last year. There has been no further announcements. But the case, as of the 21st of January, the DC Circuit denied the request for the procedural clause to evacuate those standards. So for right now, PFOA, PFOS standards at 4 parts per trillion and that pending compliance deadline of 2031 remain in place. So we're essentially waiting to see what EPA says next as to what the next phase will be, but it will likely be rule promulgation and the if they want to rescind and revisit. So what is TDEC been doing? So also when Skylar, you can feel free to send out these slides to people, but any of the links that I've provided are all publicly available, and they are included and embedded within the presentation. So some quick references for our PFAS webpage. We have archived our source water report because we are currently just going through all of our different things within our department, as well as the rest of state agencies, to ensure accessibility requirements are met for all of our publicly facing materials. So you will find that in the archive section. There's an interactive dashboard for our sampling effort, which we are continuing to improve. So if you have seen it, it's also going to get some updates soon. So it'll be, I'm really excited about that. We're going to be putting together a story map, ArcGIS for that. And then there's also here the link to EPA's UCMR5 data finder. So just a comparison, because this is also on our website, is the difference between our sampling effort for source water, which is raw untreated water, as opposed to EPA's sampling effort for UCMR5, which is finished drinking water. So we tested for the same 29 PFAS as EPA. EPA in their testing effort is also testing lithium. We test source water in the same methods that EPA has done through those approved analytical methods 533 and 537.1. And that's so that we can say that, okay, we have verified that we have used the same testing analytical methodology for raw water that EPA has used for UCMR5. So the hope of that is to say, okay, well, these are the same analytical methods. So even though, as you can see, UCMR5 does not test all public drinking water systems, we've tested all public drinking water systems for the source water supplies that feed into those systems. So there will be some overlap between our source water sampling effort as well as EPA's. And so based on that, we're looking at, okay, we can look at the raw untreated product versus the finished product and see how well some of these systems are actually working to filter out PFAS based on their technologies and their current equipment. So again, not all systems will be tested under UCMR5. They have to meet that criteria for population size, but used the same sampling methods We're also coming out with some tools for kind of navigating the UCMR5 data finder. I don't feel like as somebody who has perused that page multiple times, it's not the most user friendly. So we're trying to think about different ways in which we can make this more digestible for public audiences as well and just provide guides. Okay, so distribution of PFAS, this is based on UCMR5 findings. And so that data was last updated as well, December 5th. So I need to probably update that since. So what you see in the white outed counties, that is where data is not available. Where you see here in the light blue, those are counties in which EPA tested at least one PFAS chemical above the MRL, which is the minimum reporting level. And that's essentially the minimum at which an analytical testing method can say that a PFAS is present at a certain level based on that specific PFAS. A lot of them have different minimum reporting levels. And then for the darker blue that you see, those counties have detections of PFOA or PFOS that would exceed EPA's MCLs in finished drinking water. And so again, UCMR5, EPA's testing effort, which has been just finished drinking water. And you see there that luckily Davidson County, yeah, good job, National Metro. All right. They've been testing for a long time since. And so really also, I just will plug a shout out in general to Nashville Metro. I had an issue, personal issue for, that they came and were able to really respond. So I'm really appreciative. I was amazed with Sunday service. So personal plug there. Overall results for this have shown, that, 76 systems across 44 counties in the state. So out of that, you see the different systems, PFOA that would exceed those levels as well as PFOS. And then the thing was that out of most of this, when we did our comparison, is that between PFOA and PFOS, there's that circle that's not a VIN, it's a circle of those 18 systems where both PFOA and PFOS was detected above the 4 parts per trillion maximum contaminant level. So EPA's effort is also still ongoing. They are wrapping up, I believe, at the end of this summer. And so fall, winter timeframe, we should have the full results and be able to take a deeper dive into that and have the averages across all the different systems they've been continually testing over this time period. And this is what it looked like. Again, this was back from December 15th. And so those were the chemicals, these chemicals up here, you have PFOA and PFOS. We know that, it's likely that EPA is going to keep that 4 parts per trillion maximum contaminant level for enforcement. Then you have PFH-XS and then PFBS. Both of those, PFH-XS has its own 10 parts per trillion that was in that proposed rule, proposed final rule, and then PFBS, I believe, goes into the hazardous index calculation. So those are the occurrences that we found from the systems. And so that was out of those 76 unique systems that had tested above the minimum reporting level. So our sampling effort at CDEC. So we tested over 607 active wells at the time. So there's a different number of wells in fluctuation. This is one thing I didn't know when I started, is that the number of operating systems actually changes on a pretty regular basis. And I mean, that kind of makes sense too when you think about, okay, well, we've got to do maintenance on something, or there's like flooding or seasonal drought conditions or something like that. So you're thinking about testing if something's down. So water systems changing to different sources. But all of the systems that we tested for were active at the time for public water systems. So again, we tested this as a way that we can, where feasible, see the efficiency of how these systems are operating from the raw to finished drinking water product. And identify those watersheds and aquifers that may have PFAS contamination and characterize those ground conditions. So as well, kind of thinking about all the nearby sources of potential contamination. And then we had our DWR staff, our Division of Water Resources, were largely responsible for the collection of those raw samples and for training our staff across the state, and worked with a private contractor that analyzed those samples. Okay, and so this is what it looked like from our source water. And again, you had, if this were, so this is source water, raw water, but if this were finished drinking water, you see the blue, the darker blue, that would be these counties that would have exceedances of detections of PFOA or PFOS that above the maximum contaminant levels of 4 parts per trillion. You have the light blue, those are counties that had at least one PFAS chemical, and again, that's out of those 29 that's above the minimum reporting level. And then you have the lighter blue, which is below the minimum reporting level, so that's even better. And then that's pretty much it. No data, no PFAS detected, was the gray out. And that's only just a few counties. And I mean, that shows the ubiquity and the ubiquity of PFAS and the problem as it appears across our state. And this is very much similar to how you would see across the entire country. It's just everywhere. I will say that this number is wrong here for PFOA. It should be 24 unique systems. I checked that yesterday, actually. I was like, wait a second, that's a typo. But and you'll see that on the next chart. So I actually just go to the next chart that shows the overall findings of the source water in a visual form. So on this side, you have the below the minimum reporting level, and center you have between or detected at or above the minimum reporting level, but less than the 4 parts per trillion. And then detected at or above the 4 parts per trillion. So the blue is PFOA, the gray is PFOS. Again, I'm focusing on those because that's what EPA has said. We intend to keep these legally enforceable levels. And so this is what that looks like across the distribution of what we detected within source water supplies. And again, most of the same ones that have PFOA, where you find one, you will likely find the other. And that's what we've noticed. And this kind of looks consistent across like how we found most of the PFAS generally. Next, resources and response. So we have developed toolkits because we wanted to better inform the public about how you can reduce your risk of exposure to PFAS. And also just to generally like tell people about what it is, because there's still a lot of people that don't know. Again, by day one, what's a PFAS? But we've developed these resource toolkits to kind of help people visualize it, give them some facts to refer them to the different resources that, such as EPA's website, CDC's website. So we've developed these toolkits to try to get that information out there, and we're still working, always constantly working. It's always a process of improvement, right? On how we can better serve communities and how we can serve water systems and assist them in telling their customers about PFAS and how to avoid it. Emerging Contaminant Small Disadvantaged Communities Grant. That was really exciting because we had $38 million awarded from EPA to address PFAS in small and disadvantaged communities. And we have been slowly getting that out in terms of, I believe that there were 7 awardees, and I'm not quite sure where the status of that is, but I know that there was a process, so that was earlier this year that grant came out. And so we have some communities that were actually able to help, and they can use that. This was BIL money, so they can use that from anything from workforce training to actual hard infrastructure upgrades for PFAS filtration technologies. One thing I'll point out is that TDEC does not endorse nor support any particular private law firm. I have to do this as a caveat here, because we have heard that there are private systems that are private law firms that are approaching public water systems about a multi-district litigation. So just water systems should always refer to the official PFAS settlement website for information and go through the appropriate claims website. But that Phase 2 public water systems claim filing deadline is approaching. Please check out the information on the website for if that's something that a water system would be interested in, but we do not give legal advice. Funding and technical assistance available through the Fleming Training Center, as well as the state revolving fund program, so that we have those available for systems. And then what does it look like for 2.0? Because we are here going on a bioscience tour. And that's a potentiality. There's lots of potentialities here. We're still waiting, to hear from our, leadership as to, what the next phase of PFAS sampling will look like for TDEC based on what's going to be the most helpful in terms of regulatory enforcement and compliance, in terms of programmatic support, and making things, a little bit easier for, our people and our staff. But then also really thinking about the focus here is the health of people and the environment. What is going to be of the most benefit to people and what data will help us to better make solid data-driven decisions. So that is what we're looking at, in terms of that. So there's a lot of efforts that we can pursue, and we're looking at different avenues to pursue them. We will have that coming out hopefully at the end of this summer. But this is really essentially it. It's regulatory functions and the protection of human and environmental health. Okay, and then cross-agency collaboration and research opportunities. We're always looking for research opportunities, like I said, in terms of data. We would love that if there's opportunities to work together, and whether or not it's with county or municipality or systems, if there are ways that which TDEC cannot be just a regulator, but a resource, that's what we want to be. And that's what we want to provide to you. So that pretty much concludes my talk. This is my email address, so please contact me, but welcome to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Evan?
So last year with an intern in the ECB department, and we were looking at the emerging and state revolving fund.
In which report?
In economic community development.
Oh, ECB, okay.
We do grant writing and admin in that department. And I was looking at water quality and sampling results as a way to see, if, for example, Madison Central Utility District needed that particular grant opportunity, if the sampling was there. One of the things I found was that sometimes you'd find a different chemical, similar but polychlorinated biphenyls in fish tissue. Are you sampling water or fish tissue? Is that included? What are the specific methods, like where you're finding?
So this was all source water, and I think specifically because EPA and Tennessee would have to be the function of the state that implements the federal rules from EPA. So because that's been the main concern, and I think rightfully so, because everybody has to drink water every day. So it makes sense that one is the one that they're targeting first. And so that is the rule that we will start to go through first in terms of looking at these finished drinking water rules and implementing those. But there's definitely the concern with fish tissue. There's been some interesting case studies, I think Georgia and North Carolina, on fish tissue sampling. There's also some interesting work from Maryland, because they also did not only fish tissue, but shellfish as well. So fish tissue is one thing that we could potentially utilize. In the future, that would be using EPA method 1633, which can test up for up to 40 PFAS, not just these 29. The 533 and 537.1 testing, those are very, from my understanding of it, very technical, you have to have a really tight setup of a clean room, and the instrumentation, and for that needs to be just very set to ensure that you're going to have results quality and accuracy. But as far as the fish tissue testing, that is definitely something that is on the table. Fish and deer are the two most consumed game in Tennessee, so I wouldn't rule that out.
Also, when it comes to the fish tissue testing, that's the watershed planning unit that does a lot of it. It's the surface water testing, and we do fish tissue samples were always tested for samples.
Thank you. Yeah. And I do think that if we were to do any kind of testing, we'd do the surface water, doing that testing side by side. That totally makes sense, which I think was also part of your question. So.
Piggyback off that, I know you mentioned that, I think it's a really smart idea, the TDEC's sampling source water, comparing it to EPA's finished water sampling results. Is TDEC going to supplement the EPA work on the finished side, or just sample raw source water at this time?
So.
Besides the EPA is usually a little slower than gas.
Yeah, so systems are required to conduct that initial monitoring by 2027. So it's gonna be water systems that are gonna be required to do their own testing for the finished drinking water product. And so now the systems that were tested under UCMR 5, they can use their UCMR 5 results as that consideration for initial monitoring to comply with that rule. But again, that's not gonna be all systems. So it is gonna be up to the system to do that testing.
So, thinking about biosolids that are coming from wastewater treatment plant. Got these chemicals in the water supply in lots of places. Presumably then it's gonna be in the biosolids. Is there any required testing for biosolids?
There is now, so at least within the non-exceptional quality and, could refer you over to John Newberry, who's our program manager for, the biosolids program in our Division of Water Resources. But there is now a requirement just for testing and using that approved analytical method of 1633 to do that testing for the non-exceptional quality biosolids.
Okay.
That has now been incorporated into the biosolids permitting that the state has for its program.
So that's a state requirement, a Tennessee state requirement.
Yeah, built into the permit.
What about leachate from landfills?
Leachate.
Are we gonna require landfill operators to test their leachate before it goes to the wastewater treatment?
Yeah, great question, because we've had these like, again, we're back to that cycle of PFAS, right? It continues to go through. So we don't currently have any requirements for that. However, it's something that we could always look for. I do think if you're going to test for landfill leachate, you're going to probably find it. So then what do you do with that? And really, like, that is still things that are in the works in terms of bigger questions that as we're thinking about this, how does all of this, fit in? But there are no requirements right now for the testing and landfill leachate, to my knowledge, at least.
It seems like it'd be a nice place to stop a lot of it. Right here.
Question? Yes.
What PFAS treatments are you guys seeing is working the best so far?
Well, there's a variety of different treatments that do work that people have been using, from reverse osmosis, the GAC, the granulated activated carbon filters. Then you have ultraviolet light as well that can be used. So I think that, in terms of filtration technologies, and I'll say that is not my necessarily area of expertise. But there's a bunch of different technologies out there, and they're continuing to get better every day. So we are seeing primarily that activated carbon and RO, but I will say then run into the question, okay, now what do you do with the filter or what do you do with all of this material now that the PFAS has been absorbed into the filtration technologies? So there's that concern as well.
Are you seeing any trends though in Tennessee on any of those?
I don't think I've been too much involved in those kinds of conversations because that's been mainly like the utilities kind of figuring out which technologies that they're going to choose to use for their individual systems. But there's definitely the concerns about like the disposal, the end use of those and what do you do with it. But they're both like RO, GAC, those are two commonly used methods. And then there's also, if people are concerned about individual like households as well, the National Sanitation Foundation standards for water filters that people, they said they're the agency that establishes like those, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the word here. The filtered or the approval process that they have for the filters is completely like just based off of like neutrality. And so they use that for scientific quality and you can have an assurance that this particular chemical would be filtered out if it's qualified under XYZ level of the NSF.
Yes. Sort of along the lines of the trends, but like in the sampling, like you showed the maps of like, where have you seen trends of like where it's showing up a lot in the state or like why that might be?
The usual suspects. Yeah, I mean, if you think about where has there been the most like, use of PFAS, in manufacturing processes, industrial facilities, AFFF at military bases and airports, that's generally where we're finding the majority of gas contamination.
Just wanted to jump in and say hi. I'm Sonia Allman with Metro Water Services. So we're welcome. We're really glad y'all are here. And going back to the treatment, I think every utility from being in, the utility industry, they're kind of really looking at, as you saw on the map, every county was a little bit different. I know in 2018, we began here at Metro Water Services testing for PFAS on our water side in 2015, voluntarily. And we did a pilot study in 2018 looking at various treatment methods with our source water. And we are converting our systems, which it will take a while, to GAC, which is granular activated carbon. We currently use powder activated carbon, which to date has been pretty successful. But granular activated carbon, as we move forward, is going to be better, not only with PFAS, but taste and odor issues. So that's what we're going to. And I think a lot of utilities are going to talk about GAC. When you start talking about reverse osmosis and costs as well, and to balance all of that as well. So I think every utility is very likely going to kind of work with consultants and their source water and what works best for them individually rather than an across the board answer.
I think some of the gas stuff too, their technologies are out now where they can replace the systems, go in and take systems that are saturated, burn out the PFAS, bring the system back in action.
Actually,
Yeah, and then shorter chain PFAS, they can wash it with a solvent to get rid of those. So that's a byproduct.
So those water districts that are smaller, so there was a range of required testing or levels I saw on the slide. Those that are serving less than 3,000 people, I think it was, aren't required by APA to test or?
so EPA is doing they're doing a representative sample from those systems that are under that 300, I think it's 3,300, yeah, in terms of population served by that water system. So, I mean, EPA's testing is also nationwide. So I think that would cover a representative sample, but in terms of like every system, no, EPA is not testing every system under the GCMR5 effort.
And then that mid-range population, like 3,000, what was it, 10,000 customers served? They have a different timeline that their required testing is.
Not a different timeline, just everybody's on the same timeline.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask you more, just, I guess sort of both of you, so do you think like we're getting in on this at a good time? Like, do you think we're gonna reach a point soon where like everybody's getting sick from PFAS or like what do you think the state of it is right now? Good spot.
I mean, I think that there's a growing level of knowledge amongst the public about what PFAS are, but it's a really complicated topic and trying to like disseminate that down into a way that just your average person can understand and can take action and all the other things that are globally happening in the world. So people have just, priorities, but in terms of like whether or not PFAS, like in terms of the health effects, we're still learning about that right now. That is still very much science that's happening in real time to kind of learn, what is affecting, what disease or health risks are associated with PFAS and the exposure levels. And that's really heightened as well. So like there's certain populations that are probably more at risk than others. Like you think about first responders in terms of firefighting foam. So there's definitely, or military in terms of firefighting foam. So there's definitely populations that are more at risk for different things.
It's from like a public health perspective of I mean, we're calling it like PFAS, PFOA now, but like these chemicals and whatnot have been like widely in use and in practice since like maybe like the late 1930s, 40s.
Yeah.
So would we not have like some kind of like case study almost like kind of pulled from yet? Like I know that you're asking about like, is it gonna catch up to us soon? It's like, I feel like we do have like a good bit of data that we could be looking at for like the last almost 80 years for that.
Oh, yeah, there is. It's just that because there's so many different chemical variations. You have PFOA and PFOS that have been studied the most because those are the two most historically used. They're like the two OG like chemicals. So like they've been around longer. And so they've also at the same time been studied longer.
Okay.
So you have like, I had that like chart of the different risks associated. That's evidence associated with that specific PFAS for that particular disease. So I think that there's still more investigation about how, it impacts our health.
Yeah.
And we're only going to continue to find out more about that in the coming years.
I'll jump in, add, if I may, in addition to science, there's been huge changes in technology.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about PPT, even when we talk about like drops, a part per trillion is the equivalent to 1 second in almost 32,000 years. I mean, that is so tiny. And when you start looking at technology, years ago, they didn't have a technology as widespread to test down to a part per trillion. So there are a lot of things that we are finding in our environment and in our water now that likely had been there, but we didn't know. I mean, even if you look at our lead sampling, 3 or 4 years ago, it said non-detect. And now there is a detect. It's still extremely low, but it was probably there. Our equipment just couldn't detect it. It was so low. And then we got new equipment and it's like, okay. So we have some case study, but now we've got new technologies and new science. And so then we're getting more and more accurate information and
We're always playing
catch
catch up.
before.
Yeah, we're always playing catch up. And if you thought about like for like a while ago too, I think it was a few years ago that it was 70 parts per billion was what they had said in terms of PFOA and PFOS. And now they're, so just the progression that we've made even in a few years about understanding the levels associated with different kinds of risks and exposure level has changed. So, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna jump in, like, if you have a specific public health related question, I know you shared a lot of studies. At the Tennessee Department of Health, we have an environmental epidemiology team and they do look at PFAS. So I don't think we're doing like a specific academic type study, but like we have a team that can help you find resources and stuff like that. Just
And they've been working with us actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would.
that's not me, but
My question was more just like prompted by what you asked, just because I was like,
General
I
state.
don't think we're waiting for the other shoe to, it has already.
yeah, I think it's measuring the impact of
Yeah.
the shoe and then
Yes,
how you put
exactly.
the shoe back up.
Exactly.
Don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what we're gonna do with that splatter yet, so.
Yeah.
But I do want to say thank you very much, Sonia, for jumping in for the technical questions. I appreciate that. And then Nashville Metro has been a very good partner to work with. And yeah, again, props to you guys for starting the testing back in 2013.
I think this is just a big topic that there's still a lot of questions around. And I think in addition to, treatment, I think education is so key. Because people don't realize that other places that PFAS exist. And as a utility, it's kind of put up on us to deal with it when we're not manufacturing it, we're not using it, we're just kind of, and then that, relates back to rates. We are currently doing a huge project at our Olympic water treatment plant where we are installing the gap. It probably won't be finished until 2032. It's a huge cost. But then where does that come from? We are run by ratepayers. We don't get tax money. So, in addition to assistance and funding, a lot of these smaller utilities is going to go down to increased water bills, which then, affects the lower income people that are living on a very fixed income and water's necessities. So they can't cut on their water. They have to cook and clean and take showers. So when those water rates go up, it affects them. So I think teaching people to try to not buy the products from China and have PFAS in them and bringing them into the US and just be more mindful of some of that is one of the things that I think is extremely important is just getting people's awareness of microplastics and PFAS and.
Exactly, all of the forever chemicals, forever employment. But they, no, the chemical, the issue of the imports is really, interesting. And, you know, it's just like from the perspective of, treatment plants are the passive receivers, as Sonia said, so they didn't cause the problem, but they're dealing with it. So are all of us. But if you think about, you know, how would it be the most effective to actually start addressing the problem? You would think cut off the source. But that's gonna require federal action.
That was gonna be my next question, is like, you did mention like administration changes a few times. Has that had like a significant impact on like any of the studies that you specifically are, because broadly, we know, yes, studies have been impacted, but like yours, for example.
The studies that we refer to, they have not been
Okay.
impacted, but, yeah, so I mean, and that will happen with any administration change as well, too. There will be some things that one administration does that aren't get reversed. And we're seeing that right now too, with the drinking water rule and the limbo that it's in. So, I would expect, you know, to like, you know, watch out. It's been almost a year, so they tend to like me to change up my slides in May, so. Just keep a word about.
What is the state of manufacturing of these chemicals in the United States? So ongoing?
Yeah, like some of them like PFOA, PFOS, PFOA, PFOS, not manufactured anymore in the United States, but those products, again, they could still be imported in.
All right.
So, as far as everything else goes, these are chemical formulations that are over 15,000 different kinds of chemicals where they just change one formulation.
Yeah.
So in terms of actually dealing with PFAS, like individual chemicals, and this is not TDEC's opinion, this is my personal opinion, this is Emily Leonard's personal opinion, you have to address it as a class to really actually do anything about it. Because doing one thing for one individual chemical, okay, well, that's one off the checklist, cool.
Step on one and tip one.
And are they all so different that one type of method to get rid of it or destroy it is not gonna work for another?
And it depends on the long chain versus the short chain chemicals, because the broad answer is yes. So there's gonna be different things that'll break down depending upon the media, the PFAS, chemical, what destruction technology is implemented, like the biosolids issue, for example, like biosolids do have benefit, like they are, like there's a reason why we have the land application program, and it's because they can then have that beneficial nutrients used on agricultural lands. And that has those healthy bacteria in it. But, you know, then you run into the question of, you know, when it comes to biosolids, like, you know, like if you're going to try to get PFAS out of that, if you have a PFAS concern, you basically have to incinerate it. And then that loses all the healthy bacteria and benefit. We're talking like over 4,000 degrees. So.
Yes, Jack, so is that like, again, that's like hard for that to target specific things, so it's also targeting like beneficial things being removed from water as well, or is there not much in that?
I'm not a qualified expert to answer that, Jack, but if Sonia, if you.
I don't think it's really taking out, I mean, what's in our water is, you know, this lecture water, we're targeting all the things that are harmful, you know, of. So, you know, in tap water, there's gonna be minerals, there's gonna be other things. So, you know, we target, you know, we test for about 103 different substances in our drinking water. And, you know, a lot of those we're wanting to remove. Some of those, it's like, if it's removed, it's okay. I mean, it's a mineral, it's okay, but if it's still in there, it's not gonna be harmful.
Yeah.
So GAC may take some of that out. I mean, it's essentially, GAC is granular activated carbon,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like the carbon in a Brita filter that's taking out your chlorine. It's gonna absorb that stuff, but it has more of that surface area and the texture to absorb more, and then to kind of lock it in once it hits it. So it's probably gonna pull out some more minerals, and we'll probably get some reductions in some of that. But not anything that would cause it would cause us concern.
Okay.
Um,
Negligible.
All right.
Final question. Well, if you think of any questions, please feel free to contact me. And thank you for the opportunity to present today.
Okay, thank you so much. That was great. And thank you, Sonia, too. That was
I mean,
nice addition.
yeah, it's like I need a technical expert.
It's okay.
Sorry.
This We're not quite done yet. All right, so thank you again, Emily. So we have a little over 15 minutes left. So first we will do our around the table. And again, anybody, if you have anything, an event that's coming up that you'd like to share with the group, a project you're working on that maybe you'd like feedback on, anything like that, feel free to raise your hand, share with the group.
I'll kick it off with the public service announcement of Tennessee Environmental Network Show of the South is coming up. So if you want to go to Chattanooga and hear a lot about filtration technologies from those people that are making all these new technologies, go do that. It's in Chattanooga from the 13th or the 15th. So lots of opportunities to be in the environmental space.
Anybody else?
Maybe a couple things. Question for the group, is anybody, it's the Big River Rally Conference next week, it's in San Antonio, is anybody, we're gonna go, just wondering.
I know me and Maddie will be at Tensos next week.
Okay.
End of the week, but yeah.
So spring conference.
And this is a busy month, right? I mean, a lot of people decline this because they have other, meetings, things going on, so. Yeah.
Okay, and then I have a happy announcement that we're really excited about at Herpin. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, a bill that we drafted got passed in the state legislature with the goal of helping to eliminate barriers for lead service line replacement. Super exciting. And the bill itself simply allows utilities access to private property, clarifies their legal ability to access private property with property owner consent and waiver of liability funding. If you did talk to anybody about that at any time and work together, anybody that's interested.
Thank you for sharing. Taylor?
I just wanted to share for anybody who's interested in the natural disaster space, the FEMA's Review Council had a public meeting this morning and presented their draft of the FEMA review. So it should be available online publicly if you're interested in that. When I stopped watching earlier, they had a total of 10 recommendations and it was 150 recommended actions. So it's dense, but it is out and to read very interesting.
Thanks, Taylor. Great.
We have our annual held in about 6 months, walking distance over here, held in our facility and we want them to check out. That's one thing to check out. About. I can't speak for my other developers, but we just, one of my projects, finished was about 95% done. It's a large capital project. Papers, bioprotection systems on a Metro National School to bring it up to modern stormwater compliance. It's 67,000 square feet of about 4.7 water. Going from control drains, our streams, so I'm excited under years.
That's awesome. Alright. Anybody else with anything to share? All right, thank you. All right, so last item before we adjourn the meeting, I'll try and go a little quick to maybe give us a little break to use the bathroom or anything before we go on the tour. But upcoming activities, we just wanted to give you a quick update on our climate action planning effort. So I know a lot of you, have been with us through this process, so you've heard about a bunch, but for new people in the room, we have been working on the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan under the EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program, the CPRG program. So our progress up until this point under the grant has been the Priority Climate Action Plan. That was step one. It's sort of a more near-term, shortened version of what we are now working on, the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. And as part of our progress with the CCAP so far, we've totally completed our greenhouse gas inventory using base year 2019. That was to get more, more of a representative time period without COVID. And then more recent years, there's, inconsistency in some of the available data across the years. So 2019 was the best year for us to use. We've also finished our greenhouse gas projections. That's the business as usual scenario versus the implementation scenario. So what we project our emissions will be in the future if we don't do anything here versus what they will be if we implement the strategies and actions that we come up with. We also have the emissions reduction targets that hopefully our strategies will get us to. And then we have fully quantified the greenhouse gas reduction strategies and actions. Our strategies are what the EPA refers to as the measures. That's the sort of broader goal, the general idea of what we're going to be doing to reduce emissions. And then each of those has corresponding actions underneath it, which are the more detailed like policies, programs, projects that we're actually going to implement for that strategy. And then we've also gotten some of our public engagement under our belt. We did, Maddie very graciously went down to Rutherford County on a Saturday and did some tabling for Earth Day. And that was very exciting. We had, I think she said like 150 to 200 people stop by the table that day. So we got a lot of good responses. So where are we now? We are in our final phase. As you see at the bottom there, the CCAP is due very soon, June 1st. So we are coming up on that. So right now we are doing a lot of drafting, a lot of writing, editing that, adding my cutesy little design ideas, and then we send it up to Jay and they tell me what to fix, and we keep doing that. And then really the main thing that I wanted to share with you all today is we have one more public engagement opportunity, technically two. These will be virtual engagement meetings. They will be Tuesday, the 19th, so not next week, but the one after. And they will both be 30 minutes, just virtual. The first one will be during lunchtime that day, and then the second after the workday. So more details on those will be provided in my follow-up email to you all. I'll put, Teams links, things like that, where you can find more information on our website, etc. But yeah, essentially what we're looking for at this point in the process is how you might prioritize implementation of the strategies and actions we have, which of those seem most important to you to invest in, just, going towards the writing of it in the report, how we'll convey that. And then similarly, the writing, design, sort of publication elements that might be most understandable, make the plan readable to you as an audience member. And then just sort of generally how we can tailor our plan to our audience. And we would really love to hear from you guys because, you've been with us the whole step of the way, and we really value your feedback as our stakeholders. So if you are available to come to either of these engagement meetings, we'd love to have you. It'll just be essentially me giving a quick 30-minute presentation, and then we have a survey that we've developed that you would fill out at the end of it, answering various questions. So. And then just some of our upcoming meetings, as I just mentioned, May 19th, we have that CPRG virtual engagement opportunity. May 20th, Transportation Policy Board, and June 3rd, Transportation Coordinating Committee. Daniel, I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you maybe give a little blurb of what you do there, just in case anybody here doesn't know and it's intrigued.
So, the Grant Employees of Council Services, we call our Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a federally required designation for all federal transportation funds in the urbanized area of all of the US. So we service that, and through these boards, the policy board and the coordinating committee, we program in federal funds, figured out regional priorities, and just wrapped up a 5-year update for a 25-year plan for those funds. We're starting our short-term kind of 3-year work program that as well, among many other kind of interesting and more discretionary planning things that we do, like a freight plan and a regional green-based master plan that we're going to kick off this year.
Hey, thank you again. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I knew you'd explain it better than I would. But yeah, so if any of you are interested in hearing more about that, or if maybe you know somebody involved in transportation, reach out to me. I can give you some more details on some of our other groups. And then Regional Council, June 17th, and then our next environmental roundtable will be August 12th. I believe that is a Wednesday. We should be back on the normal schedule I sent out. I know we've had to move some around, but. And then, yeah, all these meetings, more information about them can be found on the GNRC website. All right. Thank you all very, very much for coming. If you'd like to put your boxes in a stack back there, we'll bring those back, make sure they get recycled. And then we have a few minutes here till our tour. I'll get with Sonia to confirm, but if you need to use the bathroom, go ahead. We'll sort of convene in here. If you are not joining the tour, thank you very much for coming and have a great rest of your day.
That's what I was about to say. I'm like, how long is the tour? But don't think.
It's okay. Yeah. If you
No worries. Thanks for having me. I wish we could go on the tour. Sonia's awesome.
like kind of jump in. It ended up being.
She's super great. Me actually did this video here and see our water PFAS, but we came to do the net. Yeah. That's like.
Well, that's so cool.
Together and try to make a good picture.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm just. And